Whether your characters are broken down, misguided, or completely immoral, there's always a chance for redemption. Today we're going to discuss this, so stick around. By the way, my name is Brandon McNulty. I'm the author of Bad Parts, also the author of Entry Wounds, and welcome to my writing channel. One of my subscribers requested a video on the subject of redemption, and I thought this was a great idea because it's something I meant to get to last year after I did a video on fallen heroes, but today's going to be my chance at redemption. We're going to try and get this right today, and we're going to talk about the subject of redemption. We're going to also talk about the starting points and ending points for your redemption arcs. And then I'm going to talk about 5 key ingredients for redemption stories. Now let's start off by answering the question, what is redemption? And the simple, basic dictionary definition of redemption is that redemption is an occasion when someone is saved from suffering or evil. So in this case, you might have a character who is suffering because of some mistakes they've made in the past, or they might be suffering because they've made some evil decisions or they've gone down an evil path. And this is where we get our starting points for redemption arcs. There's 2 different starting points, at least in my opinion. The first one is a state of failure. And this is when someone fails when they should have succeeded. And because of their failure, it causes great suffering because of the mistakes that have been made, or because of laziness, or poor performances, or anything else along those lines. Key thing to keep in mind is that the suffering here is not the result of immoral behavior, meaning that someone didn't decide to cause harm to the world. They were trying to do something neutral or good, and instead they failed and created suffering. Some more specific examples from movies: Rocky Balboa in Rocky 3. He finds himself in a state of failure after he's defeated by Clubber Lang, and then he loses the heavyweight title. Another example would be Spider-Man in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And if you remember, toward the end of the movie, all of his choices end up putting Gwen Stacy in mortal danger. Now, the second starting point for a redemption arc would be if you have a fallen hero. And these are characters who have wandered down an immoral path. And if you want to learn more about this, I did a full video on it last year. I'll link it in the description below. I'll also put it at the top of the screen here for you. But these types of characters, they started off as good or neutral people, and then somewhere along the way they made a series of choices that led them down a darker path. People like Darth Vader, Walt Kowalski from Gran Torino, Oscar Schindler from Schindler's List, Jaime Lannister from Game of Thrones, and then Gollum/Smeagol from Lord of the Rings are all examples of fallen heroes. Alright, now that we got our starting points down, let's talk about ending points for redemption arcs. And I narrowed this down to 2 specific endings. The first one is the obvious one, and that's a redemption ending. This would be a positive change arc where you have a character who overcomes their flaw and becomes a better person or makes amends for their failures. An example of this would be Rocky when he defeats Clubber Lang in a rematch. The same guy who beat him early on in Rocky 3, he gets a second chance and he beats him this time. Another example would be Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi, where Darth Vader has a choice between saving Luke or allowing the Emperor to destroy Luke, and in the end he ends up killing the Emperor. And this of course helps Darth Vader redeem himself. It also helps the rebels defeat the Empire. The second ending point, and also the opposite of redemption, is damnation. And this would be a negative change arc. It would be where your character succumbs to their flaw. They fall back on their old ways, and when they have a big moment of choice, they end up going the wrong way once again. Some examples of this would include Gollum from Lord of the Rings, as well as Jaime Lannister from Game of Thrones. Alright, now let's talk about the key ingredients for redemption stories. And there are 5 of them. I have examples for each of them. The first one is a state of unhappiness. And this is important because you want your character to be unhappy with their life and or with the world around them. And you can see this in various stories. For instance, in Rocky 3, we see Rocky is disgusted with himself after losing his first fight with Clubber Lang. Rocky takes off his helmet, he throws it at the statue of himself. He's just disgusted with his whole state of being as well as the world around him. Another example would be from Gran Torino. Early on, we see that Walt Kowalski is a miserable old man. His wife has just died. She was apparently the only person who could really stand his company, and now he's left to sit at home. He doesn't have a strong connection with his family, nor does he have a connection with his neighbors. And because of this, he's in a state of unhappiness. The second key ingredient is an agent of change. And what this is, it's a person or situation that compels a character to seek redemption. So usually these will be characters, and you'll have a character who has a positive attitude or a character who is a very moral person coming into your down and out character's life, and they're trying to convince them to seek redemption. Great example of this comes from Rocky 3, where you have Apollo Creed seeking out Rocky after Rocky's big defeat. And Apollo says to Rocky, hey, we can get you a rematch with Clubber Lang. We can get you back into fighting shape. We can teach you to reclaim that eye of the tiger. And Apollo is also seeking redemption for himself, because if you remember, Apollo lost to Rocky in the previous movie. So if Apollo can train Rocky to regain that heavyweight title, it'll be a symbolic redemption for Apollo. Other examples include Luke in Return of the Jedi, when he sees the good in Darth Vader and convinces Darth Vader to change over the course of the story. Another example comes from Lord of the Rings. Whereas most people in the world of Lord of the Rings see Gollum, as this irredeemable person, Frodo sees the man that Gollum once was. Frodo sees him as Smeagol, and there's hope because of it. And then one more example, this is where you have a situation that compels a character to seek redemption. One more example would come from Iron Man 1, when Tony Stark realizes that his weapons are harming the world and he wants to do something about that. The third key ingredient is moments of hope. And these are instances where a fallen character shows that they have the potential to improve. And Gran Torino is full of these moments. We see Walt telling his neighbor Tao to man up, telling his neighbor Tao how to get a job, how to succeed in life, and then allowing Tao to take the Gran Torino on a date with him. We also see a moment of hope in Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, when Gollum saves Frodo from the dead marshes. And this is an ambiguous moment. It's an interesting gray area type of moment, because we have to ask ourselves the question, is Gollum really saving Frodo, or did he just save Frodo because the ring was attached to Frodo? It adds a layer of depth to the story, and it makes it interesting. Fourth key ingredient, relapses and moral setbacks. And these are moments when your character falls back on old habits, falls back on the evil ways, the old ways. And these are important because they add realism to the redemption arc. If a character just sort of flips a switch and then all of a sudden they go from being a bad person to a good person, it's kind of a hard sell. I mean, who's going to believe that? But if we show characters struggling with trying to walk the moral path, or we show characters, falling back on those old ways, it adds realism, and it also creates suspense. It makes us wonder, will they commit to that good path or not? And you see this in Rocky 3, when Rocky is giving into his fears. He's given up on his training because he's afraid to go back in the ring against Clubber Lang. You see this in Lord of the Rings, when Gollum is trying to snatch the ring off Frodo. And we see this in Return of the Jedi, when Darth Vader insists that he is set in his ways, that there is no conflict within him, and that he is not turning his back on the Emperor. And then the fifth and final key ingredient is an opportunity for redemption. And what this is a second chance. And it can be literal, like in the case of Rocky getting a rematch against Clubber Lang, or it can be symbolic, like when Andrew Garfield at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home has a chance to save MJ. Or it can be also symbolic in the sense that Darth Vader having a choice between Jedi and Sith at the end of Return of the Jedi, just like he had a choice between Jedi and Sith in Episode 3. All right, now before I wrap things up, I want to give you a few final tips on writing redemption arcs. And these are 3 quick ones. The first one is to make sure that any redemptive acts in your story match the impact of the harmful acts. Second tip is to remember that some audiences hate it when villains die right after they achieve redemption. So in other words, some audiences don't like when Darth Vader just kind of dies at the end of Return of the Jedi. They wonder, well, okay, what if he had to really make up for all the atrocities he committed? Or how would he live his life after being this monster who killed so many people? What kind of punishments would he face? Things like that. So keep that in mind. If you do have a character and you're thinking of just killing them off, can you explore the aftermath of the redemption? Can you explore how they make true amends for what they did? And then the third and final tip is that redemption should not be too quick or too easy. You want your characters to earn that redemption. If they just more or less flip a switch and then all of a sudden they go from being bad guy to good guy, the audience is not going to buy that. They have to earn that redemption. They have to put themselves on the line in order to become better people, or in order to make up for their mistakes. So I hope this helps. Question of the day: what is your favorite story that involves a redemption arc? Let us know in the comments section below, and be sure to mark for spoilers. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to support the channel, please pick up a copy of either one of my books. Also, be sure to check out my other videos. Hit the like and subscribe buttons for me, share this video with a friend, and as always, remember to keep on writing.